Alrighty, I think we're running. Good afternoon, evening, everybody. And today we'll be working more on Dos Santos apartment homes. And so to work on this, I am going to go ahead and re-review the MVP statement and tiers. So the past couple times I streamed, likely they're just going to be unlisted videos, but I was trying to figure out how to get this working with, excuse me, how to get the Postgres server set up on Windows. Primarily, I'm a Mac user, but for the purpose of live streaming, my MacBook is a 2015. It's too old. I can't handle it. So I've been shifting over to Windows in order to do these live streams. So it's been a couple of technical blocks. So it should be working now, and everything should be working. Let's take a look. So before I get too into this, I guess now is a good time to go ahead and test to make sure that I'm actually able to access the Postgres, Postgres on my device. Postgres defaults over to port 5432, so we're going to be looking to connect to that. So let's go inside of Dos Santos Apartment Homes folder, my repo, and take a look. So if everything's working correctly, let's see. Let's start at the package JSON, and this is how I like to always review my files. Let's see. What are our scripts? So our scripts that we want to run is generally going to be npm run build watch and npm run start server. So I'm still not 100% sure if running this npm start will actually run both commands in one terminal. From what I know and what I was taught, that it does not necessarily work on Windows. So I'm going to try running these two commands separately, and primarily this npm run start server. If we take a look at if we take a look at start server, this is looking to run nodemon main.js, and nodemon we can see is installed here as a developer dependency. This is going to be for testing purposes. This is going to allow me to host my server locally, and the main file it's going to be serving is main.js. So this part is the interesting thing. We have here main up here, which is actually server.js. So even though you see main.js, we can go ahead and redefine that later if we really wanted to, if we just wanted to test some other weird things, but without messing with our primary server file. But here we can see we are running main.js or server.js in an environment where we are running HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And we're going to ignore the public folder because the public folder, that's mostly going to be working with React, and so we're not going to mess with that when we're looking to just serve our backend. This is going to be, as you can see here, server.js handling our backend. This npm run build watch, this is going to run Webpack, so this is what we're going to be using for the front end. Webpack is going to compile our front end using React, making sure that we have availability to like all this ES5, ES6 syntax, everything like that, and it's all going to be using Babel as well to also just make sure that we're able to access and use all to make sure everything's compatible with all the different versions of Chrome or other web browsers that people might be using with all of this new ES5, ES6 JavaScript syntax. So that's a lot to start everything off, but getting to understand how our code is actually running is definitely going to be a really big part of debugging and making sure we understand this application as a whole. So as I mentioned, the start server is going to be our main worry. We are running server.js, so let's go ahead and finally jump in to take a look. So thank you for bearing with me for that possibly overcomplicated explanation. So now we can see we have this object thing that we're importing here, which is what this require means. Require is this slightly older version of way of saying import this and get this. In any case, so we're requiring server db. So now we have this server folder and db. If there's nothing after this, it could either be a folder or a JavaScript file. So if we take a look, dot in this directory, server folder db. Okay, so we have this db folder, and what that means is this is going to be equivalent to dbindex.js. We don't have to define it right there, but we could. I'm going to add this forward slash over here just to make it easier for me to understand. Hey, even though this could either be a folder or it could be in a JavaScript file, let's just go ahead and make it clear that this is actually a folder. I'm going to do that by adding this forward slash. Maybe there's a reason why I shouldn't be doing that, but for now, in fact, it's a little bit intuitive for me, and hopefully it still works. And const app equals require server index. So server index. So as I mentioned, likely I should be able to just go ahead and remove this and leave it as that. And hopefully everything should still work. And if not, then we can go ahead and continue to try to debug and figure out what's going on. So dbsync, then console log dbsync. Excuse me, sorry, I'm going a little bit too quickly. Just want to make sure to run through everything. db.sync. We see db imported right here on server db, so we know that it has this type of sync method added onto this type of class or object. So there's something going on here. So yeah, I believe this db is going to be an object with an instance method of sync. If you have any questions about what that exactly means, we can definitely take a look, see if I'm even right, and then try to dig deeper into getting a better understanding. But in any case, we know that we're importing this thing. It has this .sync method onto it, which, just by my intuitive, just looking at it, sync is going to synchronize our database to our program. And then after that is completed, and if it does complete, then we are going to console log db synced after it syncs. And then we are going to start listening in on the port because this app requires this database to be synced first before it can go ahead and listen. So long story short, if we run npm run start serve um, and we are able to listen on the port, that means our database was properly synced, and we will also get a console log to confirm that. So npm run start server, enter, and our app has crashed. So now we can try to figure out what's going on for, I feel like the third or fourth stream that we're dealing with this. It's working when I do it on my private time, but as we know, it's always something that can go wrong when you try to actually do it on stream, because that would be too easy. So connection refused error. We're just not able to connect to this 5432 localhost port that we were talking about. Yeah, so it looks like we're just not able to connect for whatever reason. Let's see. I'm just gonna go ahead and run npm install just to make sure we're not missing any dependencies or anything like that. Again, I'm not too familiar with how to run everything with Ubuntu and this Linux shell inside of Windows, so I'm not entirely sure if I just need to rerun these things. Obviously, that's not the error. I should have this extra tool available from Postgres, pgadmin, I believe. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and see what might be going on. pgadmin says right here it's a management tool for PostgreSQL. And I believe what I went ahead and did is that I removed Postgres from my Windows device and made it available only in my Ubuntu or Linux shell slash server. So first of all, let's see if I remember this password. Okay, perfect. So now we're in, we have the server of Postgres 12. I don't want to save the password. I feel like I keep forgetting it. So I'm going to force myself to keep typing it in. Please enter the password for Postgres. User Postgres to connect to the server. Connection refused. The server is running on that host and accepting. Is the server running on the host and accepting these connections? Seems like not. So if I remember correctly, then one thing that I have to do while working in this Windows environment and running this Windows sub Linux shell, I may have to run a command So let's take a look. I'll start postgres. So there should be some type of like postgres start or something like that. Start. Just gonna enter my way through this document. Sudo service postgresql start. Well, let's go ahead and run this first. Let's see what we have. The easiest way for me to get access to Ubuntu terminal is just using VS Code. But if I wanted to keep it separate, which in this case I kind of would prefer, let's go ahead and actually open up Ubuntu for Windows and run this command. Excuse me. So while working on a Windows device, you can right click in order to paste. So now it's going to ask for my password. I'll press enter, and now we can see that this port is down. And also, one thing I want to do is let's go ahead and share this link with my small group of friends in case they want to go ahead and watch while I code. I always have trouble figuring out how to actually get my URL, but I think I'm good. Shareable link. Now what I want to go ahead and do is run sudo service postgresql start. Someday, hopefully I'll remember this. If not, documentation is always your friend. You're never expected to memorize everything, there are certain things you should likely remember just for the sake of efficiency, but in any case, hopefully I'll remember this eventually, but I know I should always be able to find the documentation, know what I need to look up to get the answer. So let's go ahead and run sudo service postgresql start. So starting Postgres server, perfect. Now that the server is running, now I'm hoping that running this command npm run start server will go ahead and run this dbsync and then confirm that it's been synced and finally run the server that is first connecting to this database because the database must be connected in order for our app to function and to listen into that port and for things to function properly. I'm going to press enter here. Perfect. Now we see database is synced and we are serving on port 8000. Now one last thing we can go ahead and do is go ahead and move on to localhost 8000 and see that we have liftoff. We have our web page displayed and our server is connecting with our Postgres server. Our server, our app or our platform is connecting to our Postgres server. Okay. So now, just to review review for myself on what's happening on this application, we see here that we are accessing /home. If I click here, nothing changes. Cool. If I click about us, then we are shifting directories. This is the about us component. Contact us. This is the contact us component. Perfect. So now that we have the basics set up, we have the web page. We have this web page display with a very simple 3 pages that we can toggle in between, and as we can see, nothing is being refreshed. And now we also have a connection with an actual database server, so now we can start actually creating our database. Let's go ahead and go into dbdiagram, and what I want to do is I want to start building out these connections on how my app is actually supposed to function. Once I have a better understanding of that, then I should be able to or this is what I should be doing in order to really make sure that I'm covering all the bases of what my minimum viable product should look like. Let's see, looking to develop software connected to my email, jinyk226@gmail.com, which you can look up to find my GitHub as well, I believe, which is where I'm going to be committing to. And on that note, I also have a couple of more things I need to do with my GitHub branches and everything to get everything set up more properly. But for now, all of this, I don't really understand it. Let's go ahead and let's see, add column settings. I don't necessarily need that for what I want to do. Enumerators and indexes, I think I should be fine without them. I don't even completely remember what an enumerator is. Let's go ahead and remove a lot of these things. So as far as I know, this reference point of order items to this product ID, this is going to be more of an efficiency thing that you're able to set up with your server, but we are also using Postgres. Um, we're using SQLize in order to connect these pieces of getting this database set up. It's more you have fewer actual queries and Postgres or SQL like things to do, but for the purpose of this project, we should be able to use it to build out this project as a full stack application. Further down the line, maybe I'll want to remake this project using actual SQL databases, SQL queries to create and do like merge ups and merge downs and everything like that. Because in languages like Golang and other things, you are going to need to really flesh all those things out, but they have their own set of tools, other things that you need to focus on. In any case, let's go ahead and actually start defining some tables. So we have these users tables. Maybe what I want to start off with, figure out who is actually going to be using this app. So I'm going to go ahead and read through this MVP statements and tiers list and maybe even flesh it out a bit further as I go through it. Dos Santos Apartment Homes is a property management company that manages apartments. Users will be able to search different apartments owned by Dos Santos Apartment Homes in the state of Washington. Perfect. So now we know we're just in the scope of Washington, which is where I reside currently. Additionally, there will be a user admin dashboard with different permissions based on the type of user. Okay. So there's going to be two different types of dashboards, one for the users and one for the admins. So this is definitely going to be more on the per apartment complex. We're going to have this user relationship where you're able to sign up and be a part of the Dos Santos Apartment Homes network or database. You're going to be able to log into the system to have your own personalized dashboard. Users will be able to send maintenance tickets and manage their payments. Cool. Admins will be able to review unoccupied apartment homes per property and approve applications to link an email to a property location. So now we know that we need these property locations, we need these properties to have a proper ID, a way to interact with that. And then we also need this other portion of the users, and we need to be able to set up this connection of a one-to-one relationship between the two of them. So cool, that's really good. Um, I wrote this out before. I'm satisfied with how I wrote it so far, and we can continue to flesh things out. I can think of a couple more tables that we're going to need, like an application status that has like a foreign key. Excuse me. Something like these property locations, these properties IDs is going to need a foreign key on top of it. That's just like an ID of like application ID or something like that. That's going to be able to manage when it's available, when it's not available. Anyhow, it's going to be getting a little bit deeper than I'd like for the time being. So let's move on. User stories. Now there are a couple of different users that we want to keep in mind. What are users? Let's define what a user is, or let's help define what a user is. User is looking to rent an apartment and is reviewing apartment A. User is able to view the homepage and is easily able to find a list of apartments. And blah blah blah. Rent per month. User is prompted to call a number to schedule a viewing. So cool. We know scheduling a viewing is one thing we're not going to be worried about at this time. User is also given the option to begin processing an application which will link to Dos Santos Apartment Homes sign up login portal. Okay. So users are those that that may or may not be logged in but are looking to process an application to become a renter, which we see down here. So renter is its own type of user. Maybe a bit confusing to have user renter, but for now I'm going to keep it as is. So a renter reviews an apartment and price, agrees to rent from Dos Santos Apartments in apartment A, room 202. Renter creates an account with Dos Santos Apartment Homes. Renter selects apartment A and sees a list of available apartments for apartment A. Let's see. Okay. So this is good. We're going to have to clarify a little bit more where these dividing lines are and even what a user is in this idea page right here, because now I am starting to get confused. I'm getting a little bit lost. Yeah, so let's go ahead and try to get this cleared up a little bit more. User is looking for an apartment home, and the user has an option to begin processing an application. Yeah, renter agrees to rent from Dos Santos apartments for this. User for them to have get an account approved, they would have already had to create an account with the Santos apartment homes. So this sentence is unnecessary and very misleading. Renter selects apartment A and sees a list of available apartments. I don't know what I was thinking when I necessarily wrote this out. Um, um, this will so renter reviews an apartment and price agrees to rent Dos Santos apartment homes for apartment A 202. This application has been approved by an admin and is the user is now upgraded to active renter status. An active renter status. Okay, perfect. Is approved by that. Okay, so now to simplify all of this, I'm actually going to go ahead and review renter is approved to rent apartment A, room 202. Renter is approved to rent apartment A, room 202. The user is now upgraded to an active renter status, and is now considered a renter. I'm going to go ahead and capitalize renter just to make it very clear that I'm referring to our definition of a renter, not necessarily just a general renter as maybe you'll just hear on the streets or anywhere. I'm not too sure. But in any case, we have this very specific idea of what a renter is now because we want to be able to categorize these inside of our databases at a later time and hopefully in a couple of minutes. So now, let's see. There will be a rent. Now I want to go ahead and clarify the idea because all this idea of these dashboards and everything like that, that's a very much so the people who are very, very invested and integrated into our systems. So primarily the administrators and the renters. So instead of saying user admin dashboard, now I want to say renter admin dashboard because users are actually people who are just viewing this website. They're just looking for a place to stay. They're the main primary target for more of the pretty stuff, the front end, and the purpose of the website itself, which is to attract people to come rent. This dashboard is going to be more of a functionality piece, so that's going to be very much more back end focused, while the front end focus was going to be a lot more on what these users are going to be interacting with. But if we're thinking databases, we're thinking back end, we're thinking about these dashboards a lot, and so we need to make it very clear who the users of these are going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and update this here. Additionally, there will be a renter admin dashboard which with different permissions based on the type of renters will be able to send maintenance tickets and manage their payments. Admins will now be able to review unoccupied apartment numbers per property and approve applications to link an email to a property location, including some of these things. Obviously, they're not limited to those things. Do they really even need to see the number of unoccupied apartment homes per property, everything like that? Doesn't matter too much. What we know is admins have these special privileges. Renters have a very basic function of sending maintenance tickets and managing their payments. So we can get that more fleshed out later. We can create more tables as needed. We can create more foreign keys on top of these renters and admins as needed. So we'll go ahead and leave it at that for now. User stories, user, admin, renter. Perfect. Proof of concepts. What we need to do in order to prove that we can create this this platform that's able to do a lot of these things: attract new customers, manage dashboards, manage the users, manage the renters permissions, manage the admins permissions. There's a lot of things we need to do, but we just need a few proof of concepts to make sure this app can actually run. One is going to be that we need to make sure we can sync a relational database to the platform, which has taken 3 or 4 live streams to do, but perfect. We finally have it set up. It's confirmation right here. We are synced to our database and we are serving this application. So we are good. Check. We're good. Check. Probably a better way I could do that. For now, this is good. Proof of concept. Complete basic CRUD operations. So CRUD operations, it sounds kind of funny, but it's a bit of an industry standard on just a very basic, solid application. You should be able to create, read, so create, add things into your database or into your application. You need to be able to read things from your database or application. You need to be able to take out the information and see it when you want it to. You should be able to update the information. This information already exists. These tables, these little packets of information, they already exist, but they need to change. They need to be interactive. They need to be alive. They need to, we need to be able to interact with it, or else it's just it would be even worse than a Wikipedia article. It's like a book that's already been published. We don't want that. We are in the digital age. We need to update as we go. And the last thing is delete them. They exist and they just serve no purpose anymore, or they're just unnecessary. We need to be able to delete things. These are 4 very basic operations that define everything that we need to do. And we need to be able to complete them in order to have a functioning interactive application. So let's make sure to get that done eventually. We do not have it yet. The last portion is we definitely need a login sign up portal in order to bring in new users, and also to we need to bring in new users and also have like a little login. And they also need to be able to log in to access that when they want it to, and also to be able to log out when they don't want access to it, in case they're using a public computer or they're just using their computer and they just don't want to stay logged in. In any case, those next 2 things, they could be pretty complicated. One thing that I do want to do is I want this to be as secure as possible, and we could get this login sign up thing set up through like JWTs, using bcrypt and a lot of these things to really piece everything together. I am leaning more towards the side of OAuth 2, syncing with Google's users. I feel like it'll offer them the best security, and security is not really my specialty, but I could definitely develop a very basic thing to be a placeholder. Not too sure exactly how we're going to manage that, but in any case, we just need to be able to log in and sign up and store some information. Okay, cool. MVP features, minimum viable product. What do we need to say that our application is working? Users are able to view available rooms by apartment. Understood. Renters are able to view the dashboard to interact with payment and maintenance. Okay. Admins are able to view the dashboard to interact with apartments in applications. Cool. So they need to be able to interact with the apartments themselves and also the applications within them. Understood. Tech stack. So for now, what are we building this application on? JavaScript. Cool. That's going to be our primary language. I guess we also have HTML and CSS, but for now I'm just going to say JavaScript. React, that's going to be our front end. How are we going to be creating this single page application to make sure we don't have a lot of refreshes? We're able to really grab these packets of data from our server without having to refresh the page and having users wait for that to complete. They're at least able to see something on their screens while everything's loading up. Backend, what do we use? We use Express.js and we use SQLize. SQLize is going to manage our connection with our actual database, and Express.js is going to allow us to actually create our APIs to connect, to actually have these routes set up in a way for our front end to interact with our back end. I believe there's definitely a better explanation out there. I apologize if that could have been explained a lot better. And for our database, we have Postgres. Cool. So now we know we have a couple of different, we have a couple of things. We have general users. So these are going to be the users that are logged in who have not yet have an approved application, but they could possibly have an application in already. So I feel like first things first, ID is going to be the primary key, and also increment. I think there's other syntaxes I could use, but that works. Full name. Do I need full name? Not necessarily. They're definitely useful in some situations where you have to interact with some type of dashboard for marketing, that kind of thing, possibly, or any third-party services. We can add that in if it becomes necessary, but I want to let this be as bare bones as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this full name instead of that. I want first name and last name. I do prefer saying surname rather than last name, but for the sake of naming convention, having it as similar as structured as possible is going to be what I'd really prefer right now. So I don't need a country code. It's all going to be in the state of Washington. I don't need that type of data. So I have an ID, I have a first name, I have a last name, I have an email for our char. And this should also be unique. So if I wanted to, I don't even need this ID. I could use this email as my primary key. And I'd like to leave an ID for now to have that be the primary key, but this email could be a secondary primary key because we want these to be unique for sure. Um, so we have first name, we have last name, we have email. What other basic information do we want to have? We want date of birth. There's going to be could be a string, it could be a date. Let's set it up as timestamp for now. Let's see. First name, last name, email, date of birth. One thing that I could do to figure out what information people like to save is I could probably just go into my MVP documents, check out this website of Widener.com, and let's see what happens if I want to create an account. Can I even create one at this point? Is that even normal? Let's see. It's making me go into the actual let's see. So it seems like I'm not really able to log in here until I'm actually applying. So if I wanted to apply, this is the time that I would actually need to give my information. If I want a 12-month lease, now I can start my application. Not a fan of how this looks. Hopefully I can do better. I see the thought behind it. Interesting. In any case, hopefully I can do better. I'm going to do a lot of Googling to try to make it look better, but anyhow. So my name on ID would be Kevin, actually. Kim. My email, gmailk226@gmail.com. My password. And this will hopefully be encrypted into their system, because if not, that would be bad. And then 555, 555, 5555. And then I could create my account. So we don't need a lot of information. First, last name, email, password, phone number. All right, that looks good to me. I agree. And now I don't have to think, stress, or worry too much about that. They don't even have date of birth, so I'm not going to keep it, actually. Not really necessary. Do I still want to save it, though? So this is an interesting point where you don't necessarily need to have everything inside of your database in order to get the information you need. If they're sending a one-time application, that information will be in their application. We have a form that they fill out. That doesn't need to necessarily be a part of the database. Yes, I need a date of birth eventually in order to process their application, but I have no reason to necessarily save that if they're just a user. As a renter, maybe I do, but they're not a renter yet. I don't have this big investment in them or anything. I just need to get them through in order to allow them to apply to my apartment homes page. So I'm going to go ahead and take out date of birth. All I need, first and last name, email, um, let's see, phone number, varchar, and let's see. The last part is after their phone number, I need their password. But it's also going to be varchar. Oh, so everything is going to be a string pretty much, and Lionsgate. Oh, I can even add an extension if I want to. Interesting. All right, cool. I like that. Nice and simple. Once I hover off of it, hopefully I'll have this. Can't read country code in table view country code. I can get rid of these references. Let's see, creating references. You can also define relationships separately, many to one, one to many, one to one. Interesting. Don't need that. Get rid of this. Get rid of this reference. Okay, perfect. So now I have this users table right here. This is going to be where everything's really starting. And next portion that I'm going to want is I'm going to want to say, oh, I see. These references are just creating the reference on like how these are connecting to each other. We can order product ID. I see. So we can keep this a little bit more separately. So I can go ahead and add this line up here just for reference. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm also going to get rid of these. I'm going to save this line right here because this one I may also want to use this syntax later. Varchar example. Adding column items, table order items. Okay, not gonna worry too much about that. Next table that I want is we have users and then we have renters. So a user can be a renter, but it could also not be a renter. So that means that we actually do want to, we could set up a reference right here. All users require this information as a baseline. We need this. Next thing we want to check is if they are a user. So I can go ahead and define on this line right here separately that there's a reference. Let's see, renters dot ID. ID is going to be an integer. That's the primary key, which is going to increment. So renters dot ID. Let's see. Renter ID is going to be an integer. Renter ID is going to reference renters. I think this is going to be u.renter ID is equal to renter.id. Okay, and now we can see this line is drawn. Now, when we want to set up to one-to-one relationship, I don't necessarily know how to set this up on dbdiagram because we can see here there's a star on this side, which is saying this could be a one-to-many relationship. User can have multiple renter IDs. I don't actually know how to set this one-to-one relationship, and I'm not going to stress over it too much because this is more going to be a reference document that I'm going to take a screenshot more than anything. Um, so let's see. Now we have a user that can be a renter, and it could also be an admin. So admin ID, which is also another integer. And I actually want to, can I move this down like this? Perfect, I can. Still learning all the commands and shortcuts. I don't even know all of them for Mac, and I know fewer of them for Windows. So, okay. So I have one relationship set up, and next I want to set up another table, which is going to be admins as a ID int primary key increment. Um, let's see. Admins. So the permission is going to be, how do I want to define the admins? What things? I don't know exactly know what the admin table is going to need. I don't even really know what the renters table is going to need. So I'm going to keep this as basic and as simple as possible because who knows, maybe I'll just be able to have renter and admin as a boolean later and it's just true or false, and if it's true then uh, if it's true then they'll have access, if it's false they don't have access. So we'll see. I believe that I want to get the setup for the future so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel too much. So I'm going to consider this. I'm getting the structure set up and I can add to these as time goes on. But for the time being, um, reference u.admin ID references admins a.id. Okay. All right, so this is what we have for now. We have a user that has a reference to these different tables for renter and for admins, which will store separate data. Renter, I am going to want some additional information um, and also link it to a new table of the actual apartments, which I'll start creating here in a bit. In any case, now we have a table for users, we have a table for renters, we have a table for admins. Now we want, just as I was mentioning, a new table for um, now we want this new table for the actual apartments themselves. Let's move down a little bit further. Table apartment as, let's just leave it as apartments. Apartments. So now ID, which has an int, which is a primary key, and it increments. Excuse me. Now let's see. It's gonna have a name, which is gonna be a varchar. So this is going to be like apartment A. It's going to have a name, and it's going to have um a room reference. And each room is going to have its own ID. So room ID. No, that's not what I want. Let's see. So what this can do is maybe, can it store an array? How do I tell it to store an array? Well, I can just say array and it's not yelling at me. What should I say it's this? I sure can. So remedy, huh. So renters need a room ID because each renter is going to have a room ID. Integer. So now I added this foreign key onto renters because each renter is it needs to have some type of room ID that it references. Okay, so that means now I need this new table called rooms. And each room is going to have an ID, which is an integer, pk, increment, we're used to this. And it's going to have an apartment ID on here, which is going to be an integer. I can go ahead and set up this relationship right here, just saying this references to apartments dot ID. Okay. So this one, do I want to just define it below? I feel like I'm just doing what's most convenient for me. Maybe it's not the easiest to understand. I feel like maybe it's easier to understand if I write it out like that, but I'm going too much off of just like intuition um when I haven't used dbdiagram enough to know exactly what the best way is going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and define it below. This is more of how we do it in SQLize as well. So let's try to keep things as consistent as possible. So there's a reference from rooms dot apartment ID, which references, let's see, apartment dot ID. Okay, cool. Now we have these apartments and we have these rooms. I like it. So now each room has an apartment ID. It has a rent amount. Rent, which is an integer. I'm gonna say it's an integer. I don't think anyone charges like $13.30 and 76 cents per month. Say monthly rent. So when you're renting a room, what are the things you need to know? You need to know what apartment it's attached to, the room number, another integer, the actual room number itself, the apartment ID to figure out what apartment room number it is, the monthly rent amount. I believe that should be good for now. I'm sure there's more things I want to add on. Oh, let's see. So what's just some room things we want to know? Bedrooms, number of bedrooms, integer. Bathrooms. So I'm gonna call this a float, just because it could be a it would be like a 2.5 bed bathroom or something like that. I'm just gonna call it a float. We need to know the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, um, washer, dryer. I'm gonna leave this as a boolean. Does it have a washer and dryer in unit? What other information do we have on apartments? The price, square feet. Okay, let's do that. Let's do square feet. Square feet. It's going to be another integer. Okay, cool. Now you have these rooms that have a good amount of information. I'm going to put this apartment ID a little bit higher up right there. Okay. Alrighty. Now these renters are going to have access to this room ID, so now I should set up this relationship as well. Where are all of my references? I have references here. I have two references here. Let's go ahead and move all of these down together. Okay, so now I want another reference. I want to connect these renters to these rooms. So now I want to say renters dot room ID references rooms dot ID. That's each. So rooms can have multiple renters. So one room can have many renters, correct? Okay, I agree. Okay. Okay, cool. So now we have these renters. They have access to a room ID and they also pay rent. So they are going to have a rent amount. They're going to have monthly rent. Okay. So all of this information can be accessed through this foreign key actually of room ID. So I don't need to save this monthly rent thing twice. I should be able to reference it. If I wanted to change the price, I need to make sure that through things like the Equal Housing Act, I'm sure it needs to be publicly available what the price is listed for. So it would just be, let's change in the database what the monthly rent is for this room and then immediately rent it out to this renter. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but in any case, I feel like this will suffice for now. Alrighty. What other things do I need to get this set up? So now I can go ahead and pull up my MVP statements and just make sure that everything is possible that I want to do with my application. So I'm going to move this to the side. We're taking a look and let's see. Dos Santos Apartment Homes is a property management company that manages apartments. Users will be able to search for different apartments. So users, they don't even have to have registered in order to do things. This is just things that our website will initially do. Let's see. There will be renter admin dashboard with different permissions based on the type of user. Renters will be able to send maintenance tickets and manage their payments. Okay, so that's a good point. We need to have access to these maintenance tickets. So we're gonna need to make a maintenance table and manage their payments. How are we going to manage their payments? Likely it's going to be through something like Stripe that's going to allow them to process transactions. Um, but let's see, maintenance tickets. I believe the payment management section that is going to have to be its own. It's going to be its own section. I'll likely try to do some research off of live streaming in order to research that more as well to figure out how all of that should interact with our database. Um, okay. So maintenance tickets. Admins will also be able to review unoccupied apartment homes. Okay, so now each room needs some type of reference as well. Um, to see if it's rented. Now, there's a couple of ways we might be able to go about that. It may be a many-to-many relationship, and we need to build some type of through table in order to set up that many-to-many relationship. Because this question of is this occupied or not is an important one where we don't necessarily want to solve that just through a yes or no, because if the relationship is set, we should know who the renter or renters for that apartment is are. Grammar things. It's just grammar. No, I'm not going to worry about that. Admins will be able to review unoccupied apartment numbers and unoccupied apartment numbers per property and approve applications. So we do also have this idea of the applications that need to be managed, which admins will just have access to. Let's see, apartments, name, ID, rooms. So I guess there's this question of, do we want admins for each apartment complex, or do we want overall admins for the property? The way I'm setting it up, the entire property management complex is going to be, these admins are going to be able to handle everything. Likely, property manager from the specific apartment home will be able to contact these administrators to get all of this processed. So that's the way I'm thinking. Maybe I'll reference this live stream even to just remember what I was even thinking right now when I set up these admins this way. If there's anything that I want to take away from this right now, is that how you set these up is very, very important. You need to understand the implications and the possible downfalls. And if you don't even understand that, then you should be worried as you're building this application. So I am a little bit worried, but I feel like I understand the risks of what I'm doing. I'm understanding a little bit of, this is something that I can work with. I can continue to work with this workflow. I feel like this workflow works. I have some answers in my head, and they just need to get fleshed out over time, but obviously gonna need time to do all those things. So first things first, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. The two big things I need to focus on right now is going to be creating a table for these maintenance tickets and trying to set up this unoccupied or occupied checker for these apartment rooms. So let's start with this. We need to these maintenance tickets. So let's go ahead and create a table maintenance tickets. It's going to have an ID, same as always. Increment. It's going to have a description, or let's just say title for now. Varchar, and then description is going to be text. So it can be long if they want it to. I should really limit them because I feel like people can write a lot. I don't want them to the option to write too much, but for now, let's just go with text. So it's gonna have a title, a description of what the problem is. It's going to have a description, and let's see. I'm going to still leave this very general. They can put whatever they want in the description. Tell me what rooms. I'm not going to leave an extra field for that, and kind of just create more fields for the sake of creating them. I still want this to be a relatively simple application. We want to hit that minimum viable product. In order to do that, we need to be able to check if this is complete or not completed. So that's going to be a Boolean. We're going to want to check if that's true or false. All right. So now that we can check if this is true or false, I'm going to try to see if there's anything else. Admin spoke with the renter. In terms of maintenance tickets, now we should just set that relationship. Maintenance tickets is going to have a reference to a renter because only renters are going to be able to have this. So maintenance tickets, renters can have multiple maintenance tickets. So the foreign key should be on maintenance tickets. Maintenance tickets, we're just going to have a boolean, and it's also going to have a renter ID. Move that up here, which is going to be an integer. And we are going to set this reference down over here. Reference as maintenance tickets. Okay, maintenance ticket dot renter ID is a reference to renter r.id. Okay. So now renters can have maintenance tickets, and that's going to have a title, description, and here, let's see. I'm also going to add the section for maintenance notes text. Now I want the admins or whoever is working on these tickets to actually be able to write some notes on the status of the work or anything like that. My hand is also acting out. I have eczema, sadly. Not sure what I did with the moisturizer. I took it out somewhere. It's starting to act up a bit. Well, seems like I might be on a bit of a hunt for now. I'm gonna try to get to a good stopping place, and then I'll likely just go ahead and take a break from there. So for now, I have these renters. They can have maintenance tickets, and these renters is going to have a reference to a room ID, and I should also have a room ID reference for these maintenance tickets. So now these renters, rooms, maintenance ticket, all these things, they're becoming a little bit intertwined. So I feel like I already have an answer for some of these things I'm about to say, but I want to go ahead and lay it all out there to make sure that it's a very intentional decision. Why would I not just say maintenance tickets? Let's go ahead and just link that to a room itself. So when I ask that question out loud, what I think is that in order for a ticket to be created, a specific user has to be creating this ticket. And when that ticket is created, we want that to be a reference to the person, because an apartment room can have multiple renters. You can have two co-renters, like a couple. Both of their names are going to be on the lease. They're both going to be considered owners of the apartment. So when I create this ticket, I mostly want this renter ID to point to who's the one who told me to do this work? Who's the one who's requesting for this work to be done? Let's take a look and reference to that person's ticket, because if we need to talk to someone, we're going to want to talk to this renter, and then we can take a look at their email from the users and everything anyhow. Yep, we want to be able to reference the renter itself. So what are the benefits of actually just renting it from the room specifically? One person submits a ticket, and everyone who's connected or who's linked to this room could then all of a sudden be notified of any maintenance tickets going on. So there's a lot of ways you can approach this problem. In this case, I'm going to use renter ID. I feel like the pros of doing this is going to be a lot more straightforward. When writing out the code, it's going to be simple, and we can direct the communication directly over to whoever is requesting it. I think that's the biggest portion that directing to this room does not do. So let's see. We have a maintenance ticket where we have a reference to the renter ID. It has a title as a description as maintenance notes, and we can know if it's completed or not, because if it's not completed, we're going to need to do the work. We're going to need to reference. I feel like we're also going to need some timestamps, so let's go ahead and add that in as well. Time requested is going to have a timestamp, And then time completed is also going to have a timestamp. And this is also just good for us to reference later if need be. Uh, these tickets are very time sensitive, and so we should treat them as such. We want some type of reference when they're completed and finished. Okay. So the other portion of these renters is the rent itself. Likely we're going to need some rental transaction table. Um, let's see. I'm wondering if I should just go ahead and create that for the time being, but I'm going to hold off on that. So renters are going to be able to say maintenance tickets and manage their payments. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this in red just so I know that this really needs to be done. And maybe some slightly less red color, make it a little bit less bold. Okay. Say maintenance tickets, so I don't know if I want to exactly mark this right here actually. I'm going to leave this blank. I'm sure there's a better place I can try to keep track of this. Idea is renters will be able to send maintenance tickets and manage their payments. Admins will be able to review unoccupied apartment numbers per property and approve applications. So yes, this idea of this unoccupied or occupied apartment rooms. Let's see. I'll go ahead and explain again my troubles or my worries while thinking about how I want to work through this. If I really wanted to, I could just go into rooms here and say occupied is a boolean. Is this occupied or is it not? If the answer is yes, then I want to find out who this reference is. So it doesn't seem to make too much sense to make this a boolean if I have to do some more reference work in the most place. If I have a reference associated with it, then it's occupied. If it doesn't, then there's no occupancy. So I don't want to set it up like this. From what I can tell, I want some type of through table to search through to find out if this room has an occupier. So in order to start doing that, what do I want? I'm going to make a through table. I'm going to explicitly state it out for two reasons. One, I don't know how to really make a many-to-many relationship on dbdiagram. And two, um, having it explicitly written out gives you more control. If you have something like a shopping cart in an e-commerce website, there's a couple more extra properties that you need to add through where you just can't have this through table. Anyhow, that's a huge tangent. Don't worry about it. I'm going to make a through table right now to connect these renters and these rooms. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the bottom over here, and I'm going to create a table. Occupants, occupy, let's see. So room ID, renters, renter ID. And both of these are going to be an integer. And this reference, I'm actually just going to go ahead and do in here. It's a through table, so maybe this will help me clarify. This is a through table. I'm defining these references right here. So this is a reference that's going to be referencing rooms.id. I'm going to say equal. Okay. Expected blank. That. What type of relation is set as? It looks the same. I'm gonna stick with the syntax that I know. And this is going to be a reference to renter ID. Renter does have a shorthand, renter.id. man, because this can be up here. Occupancy, I want that really explicitly right here. So now we can see this room ID thing we have right here. It's really duplicative of what this occupancy table is doing for us. So we actually don't need this foreign key of room ID anymore. We have this occupancy table to confirm it. But at that point, it's a many-to-many relationship. It's like saying one renter can have multiple apartment homes, which I guess in theory they can. Why would I stop them if they wanted to rent two rooms that were right next to each other? Who's me to say? Who am I to say no to that? So this having to be a one-to-many relationship, it's an assumption I made. I don't really like that assumption anymore the more I think about it. So let's go ahead and remove that. First, I want to remove the association because this is something interesting to just talk about, something interesting for me to just talk out loud about. Is this idea of merging up and merging down databases, which is something that is done a lot for us in code. I feel like when we're working in JavaScript using I'm making a very generalized statement. Let me take a step back. The way I was taught to create databases and the way I was trained to interact with them is through using SQLize and Express.js. Express.js is handling Express and SQLize are handling a lot more for us. So if that is how you learned to set up these databases, there's a lot of things that these applications are doing for you that you might not initially know. When it comes to databases, you do not want to just go ahead and just say, okay, let's completely just drop this database and recreate it. It's not as easy as these programs make it sound sometimes. The best way to delete these databases and to delete these tables that are all interacting with each other in very complicated ways is through this process of merging up and merging down. We want to delete the associations before we delete the tables themselves, because if we delete the table before we delete the association, our entire database is just going to crash in that exact moment. We're going to have a lot of problems. Things aren't going to be interacting properly, and it's just going to be really, really messy, which is why we have this idea of like, let's merge down first. Let's go ahead and systematically destructure everything that we're going to do. So in that same train of thought, if I went ahead and just deleted this room ID thing right here, so let's see, renters, room ID, I could just delete this right here. And then all of a sudden, I have this error down here on line 66 saying, hey, this association, I can't find this reference. I'm breaking. This red bar right here. We do not want to see this. And knowing, sure, this is just like a really small moment. If I just wanted to go ahead and say like, well, I mean, I know I have to delete it, but I mean, there you go. Like, was it really that hard? It wasn't, and it wasn't that complicated. But again, it all just goes to like, how intentional are you while you're coding, while you're doing your work. So let's go ahead and follow this process. Follow this process that we take as a given sometimes. If hey, I'm a full stack graduate. Thank you, full stack. I really loved interacting with the program. I loved really learning to code with you. But this is something that maybe my fellow cohorts don't understand this portion either, on like, what is our code really doing for us? What are these tools that we were given really doing for us? Let's try to not take those for granted. Let's go ahead and delete this association first. This room ID is connected to these rooms. So let's find that. Rooms apartment ID, no. Rooms renters.room ID is a reference to rooms.id. When I delete this line, I'm hoping I do not see any red here. I'm not breaking the database itself. This database is still running. If we're running a million users and there are all these requests and everything to interact with this database, I'm not going to go ahead and stop this server for 15 minutes just so I can go ahead and make some simple change of removing a renter from a room. Anyhow, so if I delete this, I don't get any errors. My code is running. Everything is fine. Nothing is breaking. Next, what I can go ahead is go into this renters table and remove this room ID safely, and nothing breaks. Now, we've removed this association between renters and rooms without breaking our database, without breaking these tables, and without causing some strange interactions to have our code yell at us and to really just break the experience for every person who's really possibly interacting with this database. So that was a huge tangent from what I wanted to get into, but I feel like it's a very important point to go. It's something very important to really understand and be very conscious on how we're working with this database. Databases are very sensitive, and we should treat them as such. So yeah, thank you for listening to that section. Whew. In any case, all right, let's go back to this. Now we have these renters. Very simply, it just has one ID, and now we have this occupancy table that it references. Now we can see, does this room ID have a renter or multiple renters? Does renter have multiple rooms? Whatever it may be. Let's go ahead and just have this through table to hold all of this data. And through this through table, yeah, I believe this should just be the answer to a lot of my problems. So I'm going to say with this, I will be able to tell if an apartment is occupied or not. I'm going to check for this room ID and to see if there are any renter IDs in that table when I run that query. Because if there's one or more, then that means it is occupied. Perfect. And let's see. User stories. User admin. User is going to be mainly front end. Admin spoke with the renter or submit an application. Admin verifies there are no other applications in 202 and approves that renter's application after review. Admin has the ability to update before approval. Afterward, admin is able to view the renter's payment and maintenance history / requests. So if you're an admin, you're able to view all maintenance tickets. You're able to run this query that you wouldn't be able to run otherwise. That's something that can be handled through the API. I apologize for the yawn unprofessionalness, but I'm likely going to be live streaming a lot of things and a lot of this process, so I should learn to get comfortable in front of the camera anyways. So cool. I'm pretty satisfied with that. With this payment section, again, this is going to be an entire beast in and of itself that I'm not going to get into too much right now. This maintenance history and requests, this is going to really be handled through our API, so not everything is handled through databases. Using a database is another tool that we have, and a benefit of using this tool is having access to be able to run these database queries and to really filter through our information properly. So just putting everything into this document saying, oh, like history and requests, let's make that another field in another table. Let's not overly complicate our database. We want this to be very intuitive and for there to be a lot of structure while we're building this out. Let's not create things for the sake of creating it. Let's create it if we feel like it's a necessity to have the proper framework to build our application upon. But a lot of these things, if our database is set up properly, we should be able to have access to just a lot of these tools and a lot of these benefits that come along with having a database. And one of those real big benefits, a primary reason why we have databases, is one, to store information. Two primary reasons. One is to just store information, and two is to be able to run these queries and more complex queries as needed. So for me, these queries really mean like what are these type of actions that we want to perform? What are these verbs that we want our databases to do? I'm going to say these actions that I want to perform using my database are going to be my API routes. Let me build my own API of these different actions I want to complete with the database I have available to me. So when I think of it that way, this idea of an admin is able to view the renter's payment and view the maintenance history slash requests. Um, these sound like queries to me. So this maintenance history requests, we already have a ticket maintenance tickets table that is going to have a lot of this information, and we can run these queries of like, oh, well, is it completed? When was it completed? Do I want to check these timeframes, these timestamps? Do I just want to know everything that's been completed? All of these are different types of queries, and we have a table to interact with that. Maybe we'll add an extra column to make even more complex queries. But for now, from what I read right here, it's a very simple. What do you call? Reading operation that we can just run a query on. Now this one is going to be another table that we're going to have to make. I have no way in my current structure to view renters' payments or payments histories, anything like that. I don't have a way to interact with that, which is why I want to really drive the point. I am not dealing with that right now in my code. I don't even know if I need to. I know I should have a history record, so something similar to this, like rental history or payment history, something like that. But I'm a bit too lost on that section right now, and there's a lot of things that we're going to need to do. This is going to be the last focus of what I want to complete in order to get this MVP running, this minimum viable product. So this is definitely on the back burner, and I will not forget it because it's a part of my MVPs that they're able. Actually, is it even a part of this? Let's see. As an admin, what do I want to be able to do? I want to add apartment complexes. Okay, so I want to have this this create operation. I want to be able to view apartment rooms by apartment complex. So that's a reading operation. I want to be able to update, obviously an update operation, update apartment rooms by user. So I want to be able to approve these applications. So this and this seem somewhat synonymous. I'm going to leave them separately for now though. I want to be able to view, approve, deny user applications. And I also want to be able to view view payment history slash status. Status slash history sounds better. And so that means up here as well, admins are able to view and interact with actually apartments, applications, and user payments. Actually, they're not interacting with it; they're just viewing it. So they're able to interact with apartments and applications. Okay, that's fair. But this is also the very important piece of why do you need to have this minimum viable product tier list? Like why is there such a big focus on like what's the MVPs, what are these tier lists and everything like that? I don't have a lot of these tiers built out, but this is why I want to really know what I'm able to do and what I'm not able to do. If you don't clearly define it from the beginning while building this this application out, you're just not going to be able to properly build it because you don't know the scope of your own project, and that's going to be a really limiting factor if you're really trying to build a bigger application or really just trying to really integrate into a team in the future. Not knowing your scope is the same as saying that you're okay with going in blind without any type of support, or it's a foolish thing to do. Don't do it. Understand the scope of what you're doing before you really start working inside of it. And this is writing out this MVP is really helping me define that scope as clearly and explicitly as possible. So when I go to present this, I could also tell them what does this application do and what does it not do. I made an active choice in order to have these features built in because it's a core component of what I believe an apartment management complex needs to be considered a working application slash platform. So yeah, with that, I will go ahead and stop there. I'm going to go ahead and take a break, try to see if I can find my something to deal with my eczema, and yeah, user stories, proof of concepts. You can tell I've also been looking for code. I've been looking at this, looking at my work for too long. If I just start glazing over things, just trying to figure out what I'm even looking at. So yeah, definitely time for a break. I'm just gonna stop right there. Um, Thank you for bearing with me. I'm going to go ahead and leave the live stream on, but I'm going to turn off my camera, just put on a background. So I will see everyone in a bit, even if it's just me. Testing, testing. All right, so cool. I was able to find my Aquaphor, my best friend. um, and now I'm back up and running. So, let's see. When you left off, we're still just building this diagram of everything that we need. So far, it seems like this the setup should be fine. I still don't know what I'm going to exactly need to add into these renters or these admins, but I feel like it's good to still have that set up. And let's see. Excuse me. Let's see. What's the next thing I want to go ahead and do? I have these tables set up now. Let's actually start coding that into our project. I feel like that's going to be the next thing. And then maybe we can set up the structure. I feel like getting these tables set up in SQL, SQLized is going to be the last thing that I do for this evening, and then likely I'll switch over to studying more of like data structures and algorithms for the evening. Planning also creating a separate repo for that, so if you take a look at my GitHub, hopefully it'll be there by the end of today. Um, in any case, let's see. Just to make sure I'm understanding my application properly, I want to go ahead and do a couple of bits of testing. This is the home component. This has been updated. So if I save this, and I take a look at my Dos Santos apartment homes, I'm hoping that this is not updated at all. Okay, yes. So this is not updating because a lot of these compiling and everything is being mixed up into this bundle.js file. And you can tell I do not have really any code at all. It's very, very small. But this is already 42,000 lines. This is doing a lot of stuff. And in order for this to constantly get updated, I need Webpack to do that for me because it's handling a lot of this cross-browser compatibility, everything like that, which is why I can't just run the server and expect everything to be okay. Sadly, I wish it were that simple, but it is not at the end of the day. So what I need to do is I need Webpack to rebuild my web page and to update what's being served on this on localhost 8000. So what I'll go ahead and do here is npm run build watch, press enter, wait for Webpack to do its thing, and Webpack compiled successfully. And so now I can go ahead and refresh my page and see this has been updated. Perfect. So the interaction between the front end compiling with Webpack and hosting the backend with a nodemon, we can see really clearly how all that is set up here. So I feel like it's just like a really good short little demo on how this front end back thing is connecting using our scripts in our package.json folder using npm and JavaScript. So yeah, um, hopefully that was easy to understand. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions about that. All right, cool. So now everything is operating correctly on a very basic website. And let's start setting up those SQL connections. So now we have this DB, this database thing, this DB, this is where we're really defining our database. Now this database module.exports we're doing right here, this DB is the heart of everything that we're going to be doing. Also, what I want to do, this name is Dos Santos. Now that I'm done with all my testing, I can go and clean up my code a little bit. Here, postgres, password, localhost postgres. Okay, I'm gonna save this. Now we can see here, this database is being required into here, and what you'll notice is this database is, it's not just here that we're interacting with everything. If we take a look at our server.js file, we're actually taking DB from the DB folder, so this index.js file right here. You can see because this is an object that has db inside of it. Right here. This is db, which is inside of an object, and we're getting it through destructuring. So this is important to understand because this index.js, we're importing it right here. This database.js file right here, we're importing it. And what we want to do in this index file right here is this is where we will set our association. This is where we will set our association. So this is where we're going to actually be connecting all of our databases. But we don't have any tables or anything to connect yet. What happens if we check our Postgres psql? Do I have to say user Postgres? Maybe psql user Postgres fatal. Okay, psql user Postgres. I'm surprised it doesn't. Oh, no, this pure authentication thing. I don't know exactly how this works. I need to change some settings if I want to access it like this, I guess. Um, let's see. There's another command for that I could run to get access, actually. Let's see. Install Postgres, start server. By default, Postgres needs a password assigned to run sudo service PostgreSQL start. Let's go ahead and run this command in Ubuntu. This is more what I'm used to, but we're running WSL. We can't do things necessarily the normal way. Enter our password. Oh, that's not what we want to do. Sudo user Postgres psql. Okay, this is what we want. Now we want to actually connect to the server. So now we're in. Let's take a look at what tables we have. We have Santos, Postgres, template 0, template 1. So I want to go ahead and actually take a look at Santos. Now I'm connected to database Dos Santos as user Postgres. Cool. Now I want to take a look at the I believe it's the. So we can see we don't have any relations. We don't really have anything at all. We don't have any even tables to look at. So it's like, okay, well, don't have any relations because obviously we don't even have any tables. So let's go ahead and yeah, start adding them. So inside of this DB folder, what I want to do is I want to create. Excuse me. So I want to call this just users.js. And this users, I can say I want to actually use Sequelize to create a new user. I'm just going to go ahead and check the documentation. One thing I could do is check my old repos to see how I set it up, but especially for the purpose of, what if I didn't have those repos available? At the end of the day, if you don't have examples ready for you immediately at your fingertips, you're going to have to research it yourself. So being comfortable with doing this is very important, so it's something I want to demonstrate as well. So Postgres, excuse me, make sure looking up the right thing. We're using Sequelize. Sequelize is going to be doing this thing in PSQL, create user, or create table, I should say, which is generally use a user at first, so maybe that's what we'll do. Okay, Sequelize.define. So it seems like we'd have to import Sequelize first, so I don't like this article too much. Let's go and take a look. How to create a Sequelize to store through sync or migrations. Okay, so this dot sync. Sync. Yeah, let's take a look at the Sequelize documentation. I heard Sequelize documentation could be a lot better. It's not, but it should have what you need it to do, and with enough research and understanding of your toolkit, you should be able to do what you need to do. If not, then you're just not using the right tool. If it comes to the point where you feel like SQLize just does not have good enough documentation to suit your needs, then I would say specifically to you and maybe even to the public, SQLize would not be the right tool in whatever context you're looking to use it for. So I'm going to do my best to look through the documentation, see if we can go ahead and do it. SQLize.define, this is a very basic command. This is actually what I was looking for, but there's a couple of levels to these things that I'm trying to keep in mind as I do this, but I'm sure you can tell as well. My words are getting a little bit jumbled up right now. Let's go back to just being more straightforward with this. So a couple of things we can do is I have not seen this before. I want this. I want to be able to get SQLize from the SQLize library, and I believe these data types we can also just take that as well. There, between the different versions of SQLize, there's different types of syntax. Um, like you should be able to just say like SQLize.string, I believe as well. So I'm going to take this line right here, paste it up here, take out data types because I don't believe we're gonna need that. So now SQLize. I would say SQLize dot something. I should be able to see a lot of these commands. This is so we can be thankful for the world of TypeScript to make a lot of these things a lot more intuitive. As you can see, I'm not using TypeScript. I'm not defining what's a class, what's an object. I don't have these interfaces. I don't have a lot of these things, but let's at least thank TypeScript for existing to give us access to this easy way to view all the methods, because whoever built this SQLize API, this SQLize library, they did use TypeScript, which is why we're able to see this. Unless it's some weird Python thing, I'm not 100% sure. Again, rambling. My apologies. Let's see. What do I want to do? SQLize.define, which I don't actually see onto here, so that's kind of sad. Fine. All right, there it is. I've not seen that before. I don't want to do that. So SQLize.define, what I want to say is this is going to be user, and now I want to put in an object for what is actually going to be going inside of this user. And for this, I can make this small. I'll push this over to my left-hand side and check, I believe this one, to check my DB diagram. What does my user have? It has first name, which should be a string. Now let's go ahead and confirm a lot of things. I'm going to check the documentation again to see how they're saying it. Type, so it's going to be key value pair, the name, camel case, first name, and an object. So I can actually just go ahead and take this entire section. Post here. Model attributes are defined here. So first name, type, using data types dot string. Last name, data type string. Cool. And these don't have to be unique. What I do need to be unique is the ID is going to be default created. The default of how SQLize works is it is going to give you just an incrementing primary key. So that's one thing that we do not have to worry about this, but this email, we do want this to be unique. So when we write this key value pair, we always need to define the type, and I should be able to say SQLize.string and SQLize.string, SQLize.string, and allow null is false. Allow null, false. So as you can see, the inside of this object that is the value of this key value pair for these fields, is going to be this type. This is required. This is what type it is, and now you're adding in any additional rules that you have. And from here, we can also have a key value pair, which I'll check more documentations. If unique is unique, don't see it. Equalize is unique. Validations and constraints, yes. So inside of this username table, we can just say unique true apparently, and we can also say validate. So let's check these validate commands. We have is email, cool. So I feel like we should be using this. Is null, is not null. Unique is not is email, is URL, IP, alphanumeric, numeric, int, float, decimal, lowercase, uppercase, not null, null, not empty. That's not empty. I believe this is the one that we generally used, but I also like this unique one, unique true. So this is actually what I want, a unique true. I don't know if I'm just thinking of the wrong thing or if with this version of Sequelize, I'm just not used to it being like this. But let's see. Validate. Is email true? So this setting up how you're defining your actual tables is going to define how sturdy and robust your database really is. So any validators you feel like you need, they should be added. Let's see, validate is email true. I'm gonna save this. And one other thing I'm going to do is make sure I'm checking the right version, because I keep talking about this version. Oh, maybe this is a different version. So I really want to make sure this is v6 that I'm working with in here. So check Sequelize 6.17 version 6. Cool. So now I can jump back over to my users table. Now first name, last name, email, and what else do I need? Phone number. Type equalize string. You can see it is an option, so we should be good to use this. Let's see. Allow null, false is empty, false. Is it empty or is it empty? So as you can tell, I don't have a very great memory, so I always just check everything. Empty, not empty, not empty is true. So just to clarify, this with nothing inside of it would be empty. The value itself being null is also something we're not allowing. So these are two separate cases. Null and empty, they're two separate things that we're taking into consideration. So something I could also add into this first and last name. Validate is empty, or not empty, true. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add this into here as well. Validate not empty, true. Validate not empty, true. Okay. Remember, these are all backend validators. We should also add them from the front end to not even send in a bad request over here. But just in case someone tries to send some type of postman request, they somehow are able to do it. We still want this just to be as solid as possible. So we're really trying to cover our bases here, which may seem a bit even unnecessary, but that's a part of writing robust code. You need to take into consideration any possible angle people could be trying to access your code through, properly or not. So With that being said, I enjoy having this not empty validator on top of this allow null um, when working in Postgres in SQLize, just to make sure to cover all my bases. Um, so we're going to continue moving forward. Password type SQLize.string allow null false, and then the validate not empty. Excuse me. And now this created at these timestamps, they actually get created as default. Um, so I don't see any reason to remove them. They'll even be helpful for the maintenance tickets later, but in any case, I don't necessarily need them, but I'm not going to take them out either. And these foreign keys, renter ID and admin ID, that's something that we'll go ahead and do in a little bit. So let's go ahead and save this. Now we have our user that's defined here. Cool, we have a user defined and that's it. No, not necessarily. We need to be able to use this in order for it to be valuable to our code. So what we're going to do is say module exports. And also, I don't know what this is. Module.exports equal equals, what do we want to find this? Const user equals define user. So now I can say module exports is this user class like structure that we're using. And on top of that, we can go ahead and add methods onto this later if we really wanted to, but I'm not going to go ahead and do that. We have this user with all of its properties defined. Cool. So now I can go ahead and save this. We have a user. And let's go back to our index and import this in. Const user equals require users. Now, let's go ahead and create this renter and admin because they're really simple. They really don't do too much right now, but I feel like they're going to be needed. Renters.js. Very simply, import SQLize. Const renter equals, oh, did I set this as user or users? Okay, perfect, user. So each time we define a renter, it's just going to be a single renter. So this is going to be singular. Renters equals SQLize dot define renter and the ID is already going to be set. I'm going to save it like this for now. Keep the structure a little bit. And module.exports equals renter. Cool. Very similarly, import this, const renter equals require renters. Save that. Create one more file, admins.js. Admin, admin, admin. I'm sure there's a shortcut for find and replace all other than, maybe using this. But in any case, not necessarily needed. Const admin equals require admins. Confused why this is looking different right here. We have database, renters, users, admins. Quite interesting. any case, I hope that's going to be working properly. So now, on top of just exporting the database itself, I also want to export user, renter, admin. So now, just as this little comment is saying, this is where we're going to set our association. Now we're going to say, let's see, equalize relationships. Okay, cool. So now we can say let's see, create a one-to-one relationship. So let's take a look at our diagram again. One renter has only one user. One user can have one associated renter in a one-to-one relationship. Yes. So in a one-to-one relationship. So what I'm going to say is that renter dot belongs to a user and user dot has one renter. Next, user dot has one admin dot belongs to user. Okay, perfect. Now these relationships should be set up. Whereas we have a one-to-one relationship between renter and user, where renter user should be the one who has the foreign key. So by saying user dot has one renter, we're saying, okay, we're just going to, user is going to have this foreign key on its table. So renter ID should be a column inside of user. So now if I save this, I think the app has crashed. Sequelize.define. Sequelize.define is not a function. Let's see. Sequelize.define is not a function. What did I do incorrectly? You're trying to define. What did I say? Define. On something that is not an instance. In Extra, you do create an instance by calling the constructor that's not available in user.js. The solution here really depends on what you're trying to accomplish and how you want to organize your code. Normally, index.js is an entry point of your application, so it's unusual, a little unusual to be exporting app and SQLize from there. But if that's what you want to do, then user.js file is fine. Let's see. Let's take a look. Oh, it may be because we didn't import the database either. So SQLize. So it's not necessarily SQLize that defines db.define. Once db equals require. Okay. So I set that. It looks like it is running now, so that may have been the issue. I need to define the database, define the database, not the SQLize. SQLize is going to give us Not quite sure. DB definitely has that method, that define instance or method on it, so it seems like it's running properly. The next thing I'd want is the sync is running on server.js right here. It's saying that it's syncing, so save D right here. I can see here I have admins, renters, and users. Now I can say select all from users. Relation users does not exist. Hmm. Okay. Okay. And user. When you reference a table that can't be found in the database you are currently connected to. In the case above, the error happens because SQL is trying to find users table with an S. Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. I wonder why I have to put it in quotes for this, but it seems like this did work. I haven't had this come up before, but of course I'm working on Windows for the first time, so that's good to know. Maybe it's a Linux thing where I need to go ahead and put quotations in order to run these. So taking a look here, I do have an ID, the first name, last name, email, phone number, password, and updated that. So I have everything that I need. Looks like I am getting a call here, so I will go ahead and mute myself for a short bit. Alrighty, sorry about that. And I should not show this. Alright, well, let's go ahead and jump back to the project. Now, where do we leave off? So currently in our Postgres, we can see that in our users table, we were properly able to make all of the columns that we're looking for, so that's really good news. Excuse me. I think just for my own sake, one thing I want to do is I want to put email and password at the very beginning. This email is going to be what they're logging in with, and then the password is going to be the next thing that follows. So I feel like those should be located at the top. So I'm going to let's see, users. Here we are. I'm going to move these around a little bit. I'm going to push email up to the top, and then password following that. And now I'm going to need to add a comma here and take out a comma there, and we should be good to go. And if I save this right now, it may reorganize it, it may not. One thing that I can do on SQLize to make sure, with my database, to make sure it is completely dropped. And this database is SQLize? Yes, SQLize database, okay. So what I can say is I can say force true. Oh, I don't know what I pressed right there. Force true. Okay. And now if I save this, now it's going to make sure to completely drop the database and resync it from the beginning to make sure that any changes will definitely go through. So I'm just going to run that one time, and then I'm going to actually take this back off and resave it. What I'm hoping is that I go into here and I'll select all from users once more. Now I'm going to see email and password at the beginning, and then I have the additional columns here. And that looks good to me. Perfect. So next thing I should do likely is start setting up a way for me to manage my project a bit more and call it a day after that. In terms of work management, Kanban board, I feel like would work in this case. I'm not particularly a huge fan of Kanban boards. Um, I've worked so far with a tool called Monday.com, which was pretty enjoyable. I don't feel like I need something at that scale for a solo project like this. And GitHub also has its built-in Kanban board, so that's my plan to use that for the time being. Let's go and take a look. Projects. Add project. Is this the right place I want to be? Maybe I need to create an organization to create a Kanban board. Let's see. Create a new project. Project board name. Dos Santos. Apartment home. The Kanban template. Okay. We do in progress done. I like it. If I can necessarily need this. Cards can be added. Yes, they can. Delete. Automatically move your cards to the right based on the status and activity of your users and pull requests. That's pretty cool. How do I do that? Manage automation. Okay. So I can definitely play with this more as time goes on. So I'm going to leave this card. Right now, like to do complete or set up postgres tables columns. That's more in progress, so I'm going to move that here. I need to set up user dashboard or set up renter dashboard. I'm going to set up admin dashboard. I don't know what's with the capitalization for that. I'm fine with keeping it that way for now. So set up the admin dashboard, set up the renter dashboard. Go back to my MVPs. Create first apartment. Create test. Actually, for now, I'm looking to go with OAuth 2 to set up my users. So I don't necessarily need to make up a fake user. I just have to log in myself and set myself up as an admin, and you may possibly use another email to set up the renter. Let's see. Set up OAuth 2. Design homepage. Design create wireframe. Let's see, design homepage, everything here. Create wireframe, design homepage, set up OAuth 2, create first apartment, set up an admin dashboard, set up rental dashboard, currently setting up the Postgres tables and columns. Let's see. I think I'll just go ahead and leave it at that for now. So now I have this little project board for my Dos Santos apartment homes. I'm going to go ahead and commit these changes and kill these. Git commit. And I should be committing more often. I should have done a couple of commits. So for the time being, added added db tables. It says package lock JSON has been updated, so I want to go ahead and check my git ignore. Package lock JSON is in my git ignore, so I'm hoping git add git commit. So I have these 10,000 some changes, even though my package lock JSON is like this. So this is an issue that I've consistently been having with my package lock JSON file in this repo for some reason. I thought I went ahead and undid the changes, and with the git ignore, it would no longer happen. Looks like that is not the case. For now, I'm going to go ahead and finish pushing this and see if this happens again more in the future. Because if it does, it'll definitely be an issue. But I'm hoping this will be just a one-time conflict that I've come into just while setting up this repo. So git commit, git push origin main. After I push that, I feel like I've done enough of this basic setup that I don't want to be able to just push to origin main like this anymore. This is just not good code. We want to make sure to have a lot more things set into place. So let's set up this GitHub repo a little bit more. Right now we can see we only have this main branch right here. And that's not necessarily what we want. Apologize if you can hear the dogs. I hope not, but um, I'm not sure if it's the wind. It's a really windy day today. It might be because my brother's in a meeting. Anyhow, let's see. Git checkout. I believe I want to check out um, git create new branch. Again, my memory is not that great, so I can say checkout B to create a new branch. Create a new branch and switch to it at the same time. Yes. Checkout B. Um, maybe I want to say development. So now I have this development branch, and from this development branch, I want to also have a new branch that is kind of my work environment. Git checkout b genyk um, genyk branch. Let's see. So what's the name of what I'm working on right now? Right now I'm working with the actual databases. So um, create DBs. I'm gonna call it create DB. So now I'm in a new branch called create DB. Um, Now I'm hoping if I go into GitHub, I should be able to see these branches in here. Possibly not. So let's view all branches. Right now we only have that, so I do want to go ahead and git push origin create DB. Git checkout, development, git push origin development. So I'm pushing these all up to GitHub because right now I created it in Git, which is like a version control system. And GitHub is actually the location where we're actually uploading all of these to. So let's find again Dos Santos apartment homes. And it looks like I am receiving another call. I don't have a readme set up, so that's important. I should go ahead and do that in a bit. I'm going to go mute myself just for a little couple more moments here. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and finish setting up this GitHub. GitHub. All right. So now when we check, it looks like we have our development branch and our create DB branch. So what we want to go ahead and do is jump into the settings and set some permissions for our branches. So let's see. When enabled, all commits must be made to a non-protected branch and submit via pull request before they can be merged into a branch that matches this rule. Yes, so this is going to be the main branch or the actual production branch. And let's see, I'm not going to require approvals because I'm the only person who's working on this. When enabled, pull requests merging into branch require a number of approvals and no changes requested before they can be merged. So I'm just working on it by myself. I'm going to make it so that I need to do things through a pull request. I can't just push onto origin main. But I'm not going to require approvals because this is a one-man project for the time being. Let's see, require status checks to pass before merging. I don't have status checks set up. That should be the only thing that I'm really looking for the time being. All right, so go ahead and create this. My password. Let's see. I have terrible memory, so got a nice handy document to help me out with that. And let's see, this document is also protected, so in case anyone has any funny ideas, it's also encoded, so you're not going to be able to read it even if you get your hands on the document. Please don't take that as a challenge. All right. Okay. So now I want this to be true for the main branch as well as the production as the development branch, because development branch is more of a testing environment where after you do your testing, you want to merge it into the rest of the project along with everyone else's work. In this case, just my work, but if I want to simulate more of a team environment in that sense, so let's see, development, require a pull request, don't require approvals. Perfect. So now main and development both are like our setup. So now we can see here we need to add a README into this project. So this is a perfect time to go ahead and set this up. It looks like I do have a README here, but there's nothing inside of it. So let's go ahead and update this. I'm also going to basic markdown table, or not even table, but basic markdown cheat sheet. Ultimate markdown cheat sheet. Thank you for towards data science. So heading, £1 sign. Pound sign. Let's see. Dos Santos apartment homes. This is the Dos Santos apartment homes README file. Very simple. Very intuitive. Let's say git branch. What branch am I on? I'm currently in the development branch right now. Let's go ahead and say, oh, I just closed out of everything. I reloaded everything, and I was checked out onto main. And okay, I'm on main. I'm like, okay, well, I have these changes. I want to add them. So let's say git add everything. Cool. Git commit readme comment added. Oh, syntax error. So now readme comment has been added with a random single quotation mark because I put a double quotation mark over here. Now I want to say git push origin main. Now when I do this, I want to see some type of error. Did it complete? If it did, then that is not the interaction that I'm hoping for. So let's take a look in here, refresh this, and see. So this readme has been updated. That's not what I want. I want this main to not be able to be updated like that. So let's take a look. Branch protection rules. Applies to one branch main. Require a pull request before merging. Let's see. Interesting. Default branch is main. I think development. No. The branch protection rules. Let's go ahead and look at the README because what I was hoping is that requiring a pull request would mean all commits must be made to a non-protected branch submitted via pull request before they can be merged onto a branch that matches this rule. My apologies. Include administrators. I'm an admin for this, so I want this to apply to myself as well. So I'm gonna here all pull push requests are required to all both main and production development branches require commits to be merged rather than pushed directly. Both main and development branches require commits to be merged rather than pushed directly onto the branch. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and try again. Let's git add, git commit, message, additional changes to readme. Perfect. Now go ahead and git push origin main. And now we can see remote rejected error failed to push some references to this repo because even admins aren't able to just go ahead and push these changes on. Darn. Okay, that's fair. You know, as a main branch, this is where everything is being hosted from. I don't want to mess with it. I understand. So let's go ahead and get checkout to development because you know it's a development branch. You know, it should be fine. So first thing I want to do is my branch even up to date? Git pull origin development. Cool, it is. But hey, I get a call over from the company from myself, and I tell myself, hey, you know, we made some changes to the main branch. You should update your main development branch before you do any changes. Like, oh, okay, yeah, thanks for letting me know. So let's just go ahead and say git merge origin main, and let's see. Perfect. So we have these changes updated here. Let's see. Git checkout origin main. Git checkout main. Hmm. So I was able to go ahead and do that again because I also did not go into here and apply this to include administrators, save changes for everybody. Now let's just take a look and see if we understand everything that's going on. So instead of our main branch and development branch, so our development branch, additional changes to README is asking if we can go ahead and merge this over. So This is one reason why we don't want to move through things too quickly. Additional changes to README. I actually made a request to go ahead and merge the two. So let's see. I requested the changes to be made. This is with the updated version. I'm just gonna go ahead and close this pull request. So let's see, last changes were made a minute ago, and this main is not updated. So this is a good reminder that right now in GitHub it is not updated, but inside of Git it is updated. So remember, Git and GitHub are two very separate things. In our main branch inside of Dos Santos apartment homes, inside of Git, it is updated, which is why we saw these changes come through, but GitHub is not. So those are good things to keep in mind. So what I should do is I should say git checkout main, and first just make sure that I'm completely on the same page with GitHub. Git checkout main. Now I'm inside of my main Git branch. I want to say git pull origin main. So now this is updated. And git add, git commit, fix readme. Okay, your branch is ahead of origin main. Let's see. I'm gonna say git stash. This should be, okay, so I don't even have any local changes to save. So right now, my branch is ahead of origin main by 1 commit. And the reason is I can't necessarily just push onto it like that. Git undo commit. Let's see. Git reset head. Okay. All right. So right now, definitely just trying to figure out how I want to interact with this, because made a couple of changes in between while I was trying to get all of my branches set up properly. So now I got some interesting interactions going on. Additional change added. Save this. Hit push. Alright, so let's go ahead and just follow the proper workflow that I'm looking to go through. So git pull origin main. I don't want these extra changes. Let's see. Git stash. Okay. Now that I hit git stash, I was able to go ahead and revert back to how origin main should look. Git status. Okay. Let's say git checkout development, git stash. Let's see. Git head, get reset head. Okay, now get stash. Okay. So now that I reset the head back to whenever I made that strange commit, everything was going weird. Now development and main branches are where they should be. And if I want to go say um, get checkout main, get status, this is a change. Now I could say get add, get commit, get push origin main. I know that this is going to reject it. So this, I'm just not updated. I want to get stash these changes. I want to get reset the head so it undo the commit because I can't even push it anyways. I did it in the wrong place. I can say get reset the head and get stash and I'm back to normal. Now I want the same thing to happen if I go to get checkout development and get, excuse me, yeah, this is a commit, get commit, add, get commit added to development branch, get, oh, let's save this first, then run this, excuse me, get add, get commit, get push, origin development. This should also give me an error, understandable. So now get reset head, undo the commit, and get stash to revert back to the previous version, and we're good. So now we know we cannot just go ahead and update main, we cannot just update our development environment. Those are to be merged into, or we need to submit a pull request through GitHub in order for that to happen. So now we can say, yeah, get checkout a branch, and my branch is going to be create, let's see, yeah, create DBs. So now I created a new branch entirely, and if I type get branch, I can see I have a couple of different ones. I have create DB and now I have create DBs. Currently I'm in create DBs. Now inside of create DBs, I want to say, I want to make this change now. Please create a branch and merge into development for before merging to main. With that, get add everything, get commit, added warning to top of readme. Perfect, all done. And now I can say get push origin create DBs. Now I do that, it should complete, and let's see here, create DBs, recent push, compare pull request, added warning on top of readme. And now it's asking if I want to merge into main. That is also not what I want. So what did I type into here? Get push origin create DBs. Interesting. So I wonder if there are some other settings here that I need to update. Okay, products, combine all changes from the head branch into a single commit in the base branch. I don't know exactly what that means. I don't feel like I need that. Add all commits from the head branch into the main branch individually. Let's see. Auto merge. No, don't do that. Yeah, I'm not too sure what might be going on. I don't want this interaction. First thing I want to do is I want to stop this. Create DBs. These changes don't. Okay, so this thing changed 2 minutes ago. Please create a branch and merge into development before merging to main. Yes, that is what I want. And in order to make that happen, I pushed on to create DBs. And for some reason, I submitted a pull request. GitHub automatically creating pull request. I'm not finding an answer. I don't know why this is happening. The most I can do is create a pull request and deny it. I'll close this pull request. Don't know why that happened. But now create DBs should be updated. And now what I would want to do is go to git checkout, development, and git merge origin create DBs. If I do that, then it should be merged in, and then I can say git push origin development. I can't push onto development. That's right. Okay. So it seems like what I want is not to have this. Delete this rule. So I only want to not be able to push onto main. And when I get push origin development, maybe this, get add, get commit, additional change and readme. Sixteen minutes ago, this change was added to the readme. Push the refs rejected. Hmm. feel like this create DB branch actually. And maybe I can go ahead and reset this. So add rule for development. You require full range. No, it doesn't require approval. Include administrators. Create. Now we have these two rules set back up again. Now with these two rules set back up, I want the default of when I create the branches to try to send a pull request over to development rather than main. And I'm curious if that means I need to go into branches here, switch this, and update it to development. Okay, I understand. Now development is my main branch. Now get checkout, branch, readme update. Readme update. And a couple more dots for now. Save, git add, git commit. Dots added. Git push origin, readme update. Now git readme update is updated, and now I have this, and now there's a compare and pull request. So let's go ahead and check this. Perfect. So that's what we want. We want this development. We want it to be looking to merge into development. So I can create this pull request. Take a look. There are conflicts. Resolve. Readme update. Let's keep the readme update. Mark it as resolved. Commit the merge. Merge pull request. Confirm merge. Fully branch. So now, I take a look, there's going to be the 3 dots in here. This is how we have it in here. And now, the branch that we just updated with is gone. And now the last piece we want to do is we want to create a new pull request. Update main from development. Update main, complete the pull request. Merge the pull request. Confirm merge. Okay, now it is merged. And if we take a look at our code, we should have in development, compare and pull request. Take a look at this pull request. I don't want to compare and pull the request, so I'm going to leave that as is. Take a look at my main branch, make sure it's all updated. We are good to go. So as far as I can tell now, I have the changes that I'm looking to have. Development is going to be the main focus, where if everything is working in development, then we'll just go ahead and have production /main update with whatever we have working on the development branch. So with that, I think I'm good to call it a day. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stream, but thanks so much for joining me. Really had a good time working through everything. So hopefully tomorrow or in the next couple of days, I'll do another live stream and keep working from here. Thanks so much and have a good night.